Tonight, Jodie and guest Monique Lopez discuss the consequences of growing up in an alcoholic family. Tonight on Jodie LA.
Good evening. Welcome to Jodie LA, and I'm Jodie. Tonight is a rather heavy topic, but I think a lot of the audience out there are going to be able to relate to growing up in an alcoholic home. And my guest is Monique, and I'm very happy to have you.
Thanks.
I wanted you to come on the show because you have a very unique story, and you impressed me with a very strong personality to get through the tragedies that you had to go through.
Yeah.
So what I'd like to start with is the very beginning. You were a child, obviously.
Yeah, as far back as I can remember I was 9. My dad started drinking heavily when he was in his late 20s, early 30s. And as pressures built, he drank more, and then he became abusive. And it was just the spiraling downturn of everything, you know. As things built up, the pressures got harder, he drank more, we would run and hide, and we learned how to recognize symptoms, we learned how to protect one another. My mom, when we were younger, took the most of she was the buffer.
The buffer.
Yeah, between the two.
But it took 9 years for your father to become abusive. In other words, your mother got married, and you didn't realize this until you were 9?
Yeah, that I could remember. I mean, maybe it happened earlier.
And she didn't say anything.
I don't know. You know, and I just remember being at a certain age and knowing that this was happening. He would come home in a rant and a tirade. Your bed wasn't made properly, and he would rip it apart, and then you would have to redo it, or you would get the belts, or.
So you were physically abused.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and at first you think it's just discipline. You know, there is a point where discipline is great, and this just crossed the line. And in the beginning, it was just barely stepping over. And then as time wore on and we got larger, then things would start to happen. The job didn't go real well for him, and then he would come home angry.
What did he do?
In the beginning, he worked for a lumber company. He worked in the yard, moving lumber to and from, loading trucks and things like that. Then he became a long haul trucker. He would leave days at a time. Travel around the country, dropping off, picking up loads, and coming back. And I guess there was the pressure of that. It doesn't make a lot of money. He always wanted to have his own business. He never wanted to really work for anybody else.
Did your mother know this was going on? The abuse?
Yes.
Was she abused too?
I don't know if she was abused, but I know she grew up in a very difficult home, a very Latin, male-dominated home, and I know her father drank.
So your mother is Latin, and your father
is Caucasian.
Caucasian, and so, but she was married, or no, she was a child with an alcoholic father, and then so she married an alcoholic.
And then she married an alcoholic, and
this
my father's grandfather was also an alcoholic. He was exceptionally abusive to his family.
So she probably, growing up in a family like that, was so used to it that getting married she didn't realize,
Either that or he didn't show the tendencies at that time because he was trying not to be like the people he came from. And then as the pressures of life built, like with everybody, you have a new wife and you start a new home and you a family and everything. You have to find different ways to deal with it.
So how many kids did he have?
There's 4 of us. I'm the
4
oldest of 4. There's 2 girls and 2 boys. And the youngest is 9 years younger than I am.
Were you all abused?
Yes.
All of you?
Yes. Yeah.
Was there any sexual abuse?
No, absolutely, positively
So you got lucky
not.
on that one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that wasn't the thing. It was more or less, it started out as discipline, and then it just it escalated. And then the mental abuse,
That's almost as bad as physical.
I think that was worse. When you would come home from school, you didn't know what you were going to come home to, if he was home. He worked construction after he quit the lumber business and whatnot. He worked construction, and we grew up in Salt Lake, so winters are long and hard.
Yeah.
And if there's no money coming in, it gets a little bit difficult, and he's cooped up in the house all day, so what does he do? He drinks.
Did your mother work?
Yes, my mother always worked.
She always worked.
She always worked. Very early in the morning, very late at night, and on the weekends she had kept an immaculate house. Our house was always just perfect. My mother is always working.
How did she handle this? I mean, knowing that, you know, the kids were being abused? And
She would gather us in, and she would protect, like I said, she would protect us the best way she could, and we protected each other. She would, of course, you know, tell him to stop, and tell him to go away, cool down, whatever, get into the middle of it. And she would take a lot of the abuse herself.
how bad did it get? I mean, there can be slaps, there can be hits, there can be...
It was very intense at times. I mean, I can remember times when we would run from him. My mother would put us in the car and just drive us around to get away. I didn't understand what she was doing until years and years later. We would go to an aunt's house, and I remember one time he actually followed us to the aunt's house, and we had to leave through the back door and run through the neighborhood and hide until he disappeared. And then we'd have to wait till he either passed out or cooled down, and then we could go back into the house quietly and try to and as it would go away, and then everything would smooth out, and you'd think, okay, now we're okay, this is the last time it's going to happen, and it's never going to happen again. I mean, he, at times, there was times that he would, my mother would go to bed at night, and we wouldn't know if she was going to wake up in the morning.
Oh my
Because
God.
he would use a weapon or whatever. He would go through the house in a tirade and pull out all the phones so we couldn't call anybody.
And did anyone ever get in touch with the police? Or?
Oh, all the time. I
Was
would
he
call
ever
the
put
police
away?
all the time. No,
Never put-
never. They never took him away. The laws were so very different back then. Nobody really wanted to get involved. Family just wanted to say that it was a misunderstanding. You know, nobody really wanted to they tried to help the best they could. You know, they would let us go stay there occasionally, and they'd say, you know, oh, you're going to work it out, you know, let him calm down, he's just mad, you know, things like that. And then it would start all over again.
What was he like when he was sober?
Oh, he was great. He was fun, and he's charismatic, and he's a really nice guy. If you met him on the street today, you wouldn't
think he
even
was great.
think that he was anything. I mean, he's a very nice man. He'll help you with anything.
See,
I
that's
mean-
what screws up a kid's head.
Mhm.
You know, here's Daddy who's so nice, and then he gets drunk, and he's this
Yeah, and then
abusive
then he
monster.
becomes this monster.
Yeah.
And the best thing you can do is just remove yourself from the situation. Go wait, and hopefully you'll pass out, and then you won't have to deal with anything.
But that's hard to think that way when you're 9.
Yeah.
So you had to have been very mature
Yes.
to think that
Yes,
way.
we grew up very quickly, and we learned how to just be with each other. And as we grew up, you know, we moved out of a neighborhood into a small ranch type style home, and I grew up on this little ranch, and we had horses and sheep and pigs and cows and everything, and we learned how to work really hard, and it was a good thing. I mean,
It was like an escape, I guess.
yeah, and he taught us how to do that. He taught us how to raise these animals. He taught us how to do these things, how to, you know, use an axe to cut logs for the fireplace so we could burn wood in the winter, you know, in the fireplace. And those were things that he taught us.
Did you ever go to him and say, Dad, you know, you're really abusive and you're an alcoholic, or did your mother, you need help, go to AA?
My mom might have done that, but she would have done it privately. My mom tried to keep it all just quiet. Honey, this is what happens, you know, Dad will be okay, we'll be all right in the morning. If we just do this, everything will be okay. You know, and she was just really trying to be the buffer. And
Sure.
to try to keep it, you know, away from us as much as possible. Keep him over there, keep us over here, and everybody, if they stayed away from each other, they wouldn't clash, you know.
When did she decide to get rid of him?
Unfortunately, it wasn't until they were married 25 years.
25 years she dealt with alcoholism.
Yeah, it was 25 years. It
Oh,
was,
my goodness.
you know, it escalated over the years. I mean, he, at one point in time, I remember calling the police because he had a hunting rifle, and we had to leave very quickly. We were afraid to press charges.
Because you were afraid of
we were
him.
afraid of him. Because if we did, then he would come back, you know, and then what? And one time he'd been drinking over a 4th of July holiday, and it was 3 days of drinking. And I'm not talking just, we would buy gallons of alcohol. It wasn't unusual for us to have gallons of the vodka and the bourbon and whatever. And hey, I knew how to mix a drink when I was, you know, 8, 9, 10 years old, I can make some awesome drink.
Did he let you drink?
No, we didn't drink.
No.
No, we didn't do that. Beer, whatever he was drinking. He used to think that the beer wasn't so bad, but he would just consume it. I mean, just mass quantities.
And he was
alcohol.
A mean drunk.
Yes, he was
That's
a
what's so
very
horrible.
mean drunk.
Yeah.
And it just would escalate, and just different things would happen over time. For us to drive down the street and to pass him an open beer was nothing. We thought it was normal. It's like driving down the street and, hey, hand me a Diet Coke. It was, hand me another one. He'd toss the empties back and we'd pass him forward.
So he'd be driving with you kids in the car, and he'd be bombed. And
And at that time, you didn't use seatbelts. It wasn't anything to ride in the back of an open truck. I mean, that was part of the thing. We didn't think anything of it.
And they probably didn't have ACA at that time either, and they had AA, I'm sure. That's been
Oh
around
yes,
for a long
AA's
time.
been around for a long time.
But
Yeah.
did you ever go to ACA meetings?
No, I
You never
have.
felt you needed it? Or?
No. My family. When I say my family, it's my brothers, sisters, and my mother. We're very strong. We're very close. Even to this day, we don't live that far apart from each other. I do have one brother that lives in Salt Lake City, and another one that's moving to Florida soon. And that's the farthest we've ever been from each other.
Because some of those meetings are very, well, I've been to AA meetings, I've been to ACA meetings, and I've been to codependent meetings with friends, and the ACA was definitely the toughest thing to watch.
Yeah, well, we didn't think it affected us in that way.
It didn't.
No.
And you don't think you
It's-
kind of just
It's
have put a block up?
It was part of our life. That's what we did. That's how we grew up. We just dealt with it. It just wasn't, it didn't make us, what we are. It made us stronger. It made us smart. It made us learn how to work hard, how to stick together. But as far as being a detriment into our success as human beings and people, I don't think so.
No.
No, I don't think it, because that was my mother. My mother was very good at keeping us strong and telling us that, and just making us normal.
So psychologically, you don't feel it did anything? It had to have been something at one time.
Well, I imagine it affected us all in some way. I mean, it affected me in the fact that I want my children to be so normal that I work really hard to make sure everything's right for them. I don't like being in a room where people are drinking a lot. It took me a long time to be able to go into a room where people were drinking, and a long time after that to be able to enjoy it, to enjoy the party and not worry about who's going to break out into a fight.
Because you were used to that type of alcoholic.
Yeah, definitely.
It would have been better if he just took off his clothes and danced.
Yeah, that would have been a lot nicer. Yeah, happy drunks are good.
Yeah, exactly.
It's the ones that get mean and sullen and
They're scary.
and they start taking pity on their own life. Oh, woe is me, I can't do anything because of my childhood. My mother did this to me, that's not right. I can't do anything because I just can't do it. If it's, my choice or whatever he did doesn't have any effect on me as a success, I don't think, other than the fact that it made me want to be a successful parent.
It did the
Direct opposite.
You never suffered like depression or
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, depression is always part of it. And,
Yeah, I would think you would, yeah.
And I think that just comes with a family history. The alcoholism and depression, I think they go hand in hand. That was another thing that he had to deal with, his own, the depression. And I think he drank because he was depressed, and then it just snowballed into whatever.
What kind of childhood did your father have?
I honestly don't think it was very happy. My grandmother wasn't a very nice person. She wasn't warm and cuddly. I think it was very hard. He was one of the youngest of 6 children, and his oldest siblings were much, much older than he was. And his mom was into material possessions. Everything, had to be bigger, better, faster than the neighbor.
Now, what got your mother to finally get out of this situation? After 25 years.
It was a long,
It's a long
it was a
time.
long time. We went back and forth, and I was already married and living on my own, and I had one child. And my brother and my sister, the youngest 2, lived at home. And it was still, the cycle was still going on. He was drinking more heavily. There was times that where he, in this heat, he wouldn't turn on the air conditioning for the kids. And my brother got heat stroke, and he took them to the emergency, and he actually told them that my mother had been poisoning them. You
Well,
know?
it sounds like he was also nuts on top of being an alcoholic.
Yeah, he just had some real issues.
Yeah.
And then, so one day he was on a drinking binge, and I wouldn't let my mom and my sister go home, or my brother go home, because I didn't want to risk their death.
So you were really actually thinking that he could kill.
Oh, he could. Oh, there was no doubt in our mind at all, at least in my mind. Maybe somebody else's there was a doubt, but in my mind there was no doubt that he could kill you at any given time. He would just go off on a whim. I mean, we hunted for pleasure. We were, you know, hunters and fishers and fishermen and stuff like that. So we had rifles and 22s and hunting knives and fishing knives in the house at any given time. You had to sleep,
Yeah.
you know, and if he was in a tirade, you wouldn't sleep well, you know. So this particular night, I wouldn't let him go home. I kept him home, and he just, I guess in one of his fits, he decided he was changing the locks on the house and he wasn't going to let him in. I thought, finally. So we got into the house. We took all of her possessions, all my mother's possessions. We packed him up and we moved him to storage, and we got her own place. And that was that.
And that was it.
And that's how she broke away from him. She, you know, enough was enough. But at that point, my brother, the youngest, was 13. And so he had gone through this his entire life. And
How did your mother heal? I mean, that's 25 years of such abuse.
I think it was family. I really do.
So
And
it's
even after she left him, that was difficult, because, I mean, you have financial considerations. And I think that was the biggest issue with my mom, is that she didn't think that she could make it on her own. She didn't think that it was possible, but what she didn't realize that she was really doing it on her own.
So she had to support the family. She
Mhm.
took over
She
father and
support-
mother.
Yeah, she
Your
supported
father
us
didn't do anything.
financially and emotionally and everything. And when he was away, we were the happiest little family you had ever seen. Very happy, easy, normal little kids, and growing up. And my mom insisted that we stayed in good schools, in good neighborhoods. She worked hard to get us an education so that we could then increase and be better than they were. And it worked.
Do you ever
I mean,
see him today?
No. We
Do you
did not
want
see
to?
him. No.
Do you ever just want to look at him and just tell him what you really think?
I think I have a
you
couple of
have?
times,
Yeah.
but it doesn't make a difference. But there are times that you just want to face him one more time to show him, hey, look, we made it. What's your problem? You know?
Yeah, how is he today, I wonder? I wonder if he is.
I think he's still drinking. I have a brother that does keep in contact with him. He's been remarried several times, no additional children. I do know that he still drinks. I do know that he still abuses. Several wives have left, you know, because of that. The current wife, I understand, she was a really happy person, and now she's kind of changed, and she's become an introvert and very quiet. So you know that, you know, the yelling, the name calling, the
Sure.
you know, just the detrimental behavior is still going on. You know, but that's their choice.
And
you
he never
know?
tries to get in
and the
touch with
thing
you.
is, no,
No.
no, he doesn't want to see us. And as we got older and stronger, he tried to separate us. He tried to the divide and conquer, and it doesn't work. Not with us.
So when you got married, what kind of man? You've been married twice.
Yes, I have.
So
I've been
what was
married
your
twice.
first husband like? Was
My
he-
first husband was successful. I thought he was a successful man, and I felt, you know, he was caring and loving, and I thought, wow, we're going to have this great life, and he was going to take care of me. He did not drink. That was a huge thing. He was very into family. That was a huge thing for me, because my family is number one, you know. And I thought that, you know, we could have this great little life together, and between his father and my father, it kind of drove wedges in there, and in arguments over, I have to take care of my brother and sister. I can't let them go through this at the hands of my dad. We have to be there to protect them. I think that didn't sit well with my ex-husband. His father didn't like me much, and so he would call and verbally abuse me at work.
His father?
Yeah.
was. Now, was he an alcoholic or?
No, but he had other mental issues, so I really feel sorry for my children.
Oh, God. So he had mental problems.
Yeah,
too. Was
he
there any
did.
drug addiction in your family, or
No
was it
drug
all
addiction.
alcohol? All alcohol?
No drugs at all. That is a good thing. But it was strictly alcohol and this anger and depression. There was a lot of anger.
Yeah.
Except for my mom. My mom was like this rock and this pillar in our home, and she kept us strong and she gave us faith. because he tried to isolate us. He would isolate the family. We weren't allowed to be with family. We weren't allowed to talk to friends. There was a point where he took the phone out of our home for an entire year. If we wanted to call anybody, we had to go to the payphone. We weren't allowed to have friends over. We weren't allowed to go to friends' homes. We played with each other on our little ranch. We developed games. We took care of each other. That was how we lived.
It's amazing
the
your
four of
mom
us,
could,
and that was
could have
it.
lived like that, you know? But maybe it was that time.
It was just, I think she was afraid. I think
Fear.
She did the best she could with what she had, because, she didn't have the family that I have.
Yeah.
She really didn't. I mean, if I knew that one of my brothers or one of my sisters was doing this to their family, or my nieces and nephew were in jeopardy of any kind, I would not stand aside. I would walk in there. We would have a heart-to-heart.
Yes.
They would be in rehab, and I would take their children until they got their act straight.
And a lot of times, I think in an alcoholic family, the children blame themselves. I've talked to a lot of
Yeah, I can
ACAers
see
that say that.
Because if you hadn't let the skates out, then he wouldn't have been angry. If you would have made your bed correctly, then he wouldn't have been angry.
Yeah, they take the
If you would have
blame.
gotten the grades that he wanted you to have, then he wouldn't have been angry. If you would have cooked the dinner right. I can't tell you how many times that I saw him push the dinner away and tell my mother she'd poisoned it, and how horrible it was. He was just into hurting you. That was his thing. He wanted to hurt you.
Humiliate.
Yeah, humiliate, degrade.
And then you get to the point where you're so
There's
down.
no self-esteem.
No self-esteem left, and it's hard to fight back.
There's nothing left. But my mom was really good, and she may have not had any, but she really worked hard in keeping us up and strong, and moving forward in a positive direction. I was an honor student. I participated in all the clubs that I could participate in. I mean, finances were an issue. We did what we could. We didn't have the best of everything, but we had what we needed. There was food on the table, a roof over our head, and clothes on our back.
And your brothers and sisters, have they all got through it also like you?
Yes.
Because that's amazing.
None of us drink, none of us do drugs, none of us have.
That is amazing.
We do have anger issues, I will tell you,
I was going to say, if you have no anger in you.
Yeah, we have anger issues. No, there are anger
There
issues,
have to
and
be.
today, and I personally fight with those anger issues where, my children will set me off, and then I'll start to go over the edge, and my kids will go, whoop, stop,
Yeah.
go away, take a chill, but at least they're strong enough to do that. They can recognize it, and they can tell me, and then I'll go, and I'll back off, but that's the biggest thing is the anger issue.
Sometimes you feel anger and you don't know why.
Yeah.
So it's like
and then I'll go through a depression every now and again. But again, I think that's just with genetics and stresses in life and this issues that you go with, because when you grow up in that kind of a household, you don't know how to deal with things in a normal way. You only know how to deal with them in the abnormal way.
Well, it's dysfunctional.
Right. So you learn the dysfunction.
Right.
So you watch other people and you think how you want to do it, and you see how they do it, and you try to apply it. Sometimes it doesn't always work, but I know 3 of us have anger issues. My sister is amazing. She's just so sweet and kind and quiet and loving and caring, and she's just so opposite of me, and I'm loud and obnoxious and boisterous and wound up tight like a top most of the time.
But you both could be feeling the same thing. You just bring it out differently.
Just bring it out differently. Yeah, but we're very protective with one another. My sister and I have never fought a day in our lives. Never.
Really?
Not a cross word a day in our lives.
What's the age difference?
6 years.
6. You're old. Oh, you're the
I'm
oldest,
the oldest.
right?
And then a brother. I don't think I've ever really fought or disagreed with my siblings in any way, shape, or form. We've just always been supportive. If we don't like what they're doing, we may express that opinion, but if they choose that for them and they feel that that's right, then we'll back them. Nobody's ever done anything illegal. Every one of my brothers and sisters love their children dearly. They know how to drink and how to stop.
So there's no alcoholism as far as...
All 4 of us broke the cycle.
Wow.
All 4 of us. And that is an amazing
That is amazing.
thing.
Yeah.
And if all we have to deal with is the regular pressures of life and the anger issues, which I don't know anybody that doesn't get angry over situations, but we know how to stop it. We're recognizing it. You know, I think that's a fantastic thing.
And your mom's doing okay today?
My mom is fantastic. My mom is absolutely amazing. She's finally got the life that we thought that she should have, and the life that she wanted. I mean, she travels. I mean, she has a significant other, and he's a marvelous man.
And doesn't drink.
And he does not drink.
Good.
But you know, even the drinking issue wasn't a big thing for us, because when we would get together for family functions, we had a complete wet bar. You know, we would pull out the...
Well, there's drinking and there's drinking. And
right.
normal
We would
drinking is
made
fine.
sure everybody had what they needed. Whatever drink that they were drinking, it was there available to them. We weren't drinking it, you know, and I'm not telling you that we don't drink, but we know how to stop.
Do you do anything with, you know, functions as far as abused women or
I
alcoholism?
try to support battered women's shelters as much as possible.
'Cause you'd be good to do
with
that.
donations, food, clothing, whatever. There was a person that I worked with, and she was on the board of a battered women's shelter, and we donated furniture and clothes for the children and clothes for the mothers and wives, because it was a long-term shelter. It was a fantastic place for these people to be, because they were, once they made the choice to go, then they were given a safe place to be, to establish a new life. They were taught given back their self-esteem. They were given back everything that was taken away from them.
Right.
So I do 5K runs when I can for abused children's functions.
And you
battered women's
remarried?
shelter. I remarried, and I had 2 more children.
2 more children. And
Yeah,
this
so I
man
have-
doesn't drink either, or not,
Well,
does
no,
not
this
have a
man
problem.
does drink, but he does not have a problem.
Okay, that's
Let's
what
put
I
it
should
that
say. He's
way.
not alcoholic.
None of us have a problem with drinking. We
Well, that's
know how to
good.
drink, how to celebrate, how to, you know, and how to have a good time without alcohol. You know, it's not necessary in our lives.
Do you know that we only have a minute left?
Oh.
And I feel like I feel like we've just kind of started, because I know there's so much that, you know, you could.
Well, it's an incredible thing. There is so much that goes with it.
What would you say to people out there that are sitting there moping, depressed, and, you know, they say, I come from alcoholic parents, and I just...
No, make the decision to make your own decisions. It is what it is. You lived it, you survived it, move on from it. Close that chapter of your life, make your own chapters. Keep going. Start to make a positive difference in your life. Anytime you can make a good memory in your life, anytime you can help somebody else through something, to make the best day possible. Be positive.
Well, I want to thank you so much
you.
for coming, because you're going to be an inspiration for a lot of people.
Oh, great.
You really will. And I'd like you to even come back.
Sure. Anytime.
Bring your mom. So it turned out good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was that.